Hi, I'm Michael Clark and welcome to the road trip. We're here today in Portland, Oregon for the media drive of the 2015 Dodge Challenger. And when you think about vehicles like this, it definitely is that someday car, something that I think everyone secretly yearns for in some way, shape, or form. But the one thing that we know about the segment in Canada is it's small. It's about 1.3%. And you have the Camaro, you have the Mustang, and you have the Challenger. Those are essentially your muscle car vehicles. There's been a few others that have tried to make their way in there somehow, but let's face it, we're talking about North American muscle. We're talking about stripes down the side, power bulge hoods, Hemis, tire shredding performance. This is what muscle car has meant since the inception. And since the inception, the Chrysler brand, well, you think about Dodge, you think about long gone Plymouth, you think about vehicles that really had the most incredible performance for the time. And you know what? They had some pretty interesting stripe packages too back in the day. But what we want to find out today is where exactly is this segment going? Does this segment have any life left in it? And we've already seen what's happened to the Ford Mustang for 2015. It has gone somewhat Euro in its flavorings, and the Camaro, well, we've seen a mid-cycle refresh. Again, how many ways can you stretch this shape? How many things do you want to do to it until you've done too much? And you know, there was an interesting comment this morning while we were going through the tech speak with the Dodge Challenger. The one thing that was said by the owners of the current Challengers is, don't screw up our car. And that's how passionate the owners of these particular vehicles are. So whether it's something like this 3.6 liter Pentastar V6 Challenger, or all the way up to the new 707 horsepower Hellcat, this is a car that is coveted and wanted. In fact, when it comes to how people buy their Challengers, 2/3 of them don't even cross shop in Canada. That means that 2/3 of people are walking into the Dodge dealership and saying, that's the car, give me what I want, put on the crazy stripes, put on the wheels, make it mine, and that's exactly what I'm going to look at. I'm not going to cross shop over to Mustang. I'm not going to cross shop over to Camaro. So what we want to find out today is, with all the changes that have been done to the Dodge Challenger, and there's a lot more here than you may see just at first glance, is it going to be the car that could change those numbers? I mean, we know that there's a lot of party faithful that are going to stick with this car, but there's also the possibility that they could take away things such as Camaro and Mustang sales. And that's probably got them a little worried. Now, if you've got thoughts, feelings, or questions about anything Dodge Challenger, ask the man who drove one. You can send me an email at steelbeltedmind@gmail.com. Buckle up, it's time for the road trip. Let's start off with some of the visual changes for the 2015 Dodge Challenger. We're going to start off with the SXT Plus that I've been driving this morning. Now this particular car is the V6, that is the Pentastar. We're going to show you that in a second. But let's show you that even with the V6 car, you're certainly not getting robbed of the visual. Now, for those of you who know their Mopar, you're going to notice up front here that we have the 1971 style of split grille. And with the V6 cars, what they've done is they've gone with the bright surrounds here for the splits. So looking very much the heritage piece. But you'll also notice here that the front pieces have actually been, well, given a little bit more of a prominent eyebrow. In fact, I would even go as far as to say it's a lot more aggressive than what we have seen on the previous Challengers, especially the V6 models. Now, the other thing that you'll see here is that the light array. Now, this is something that is definitely going to be a signature piece that people are going to be very excited about. Now, what they've done is they've actually gone with the LED halos around the headlamp. So even though we're not dealing with a typical quad headlamp setup, it still gives that look when you're going down the road. What they've done on this SXT Plus is they put the projector style of fog lamps down low. And you'll notice here that the front splitter, wow, a front splitter on a V6 car. I mean, I wasn't exactly expecting that. The other thing too is that you would expect that these particular hood vents are just going to be on a V6 of the applique variety. Well, you'd be wrong. These are actually functional. There's going to be air coming in, and depending on how you're going to be driving this car, and we are going to be driving this one on the track, you might want to move some of that air away from the engine, so keep that in mind. But the other thing you'll notice here too is that the hood bulge is a little bit more prominent when compared to the outgoing cars. The thing that I like here too is the cues that are carried through. You've got the split grille stylings here. Well, when you take a close look at the inlets, there's that duplication of this tight oval, and that's done in these vent pieces. Very, very nicely done. As for this particular trim at the SXT Plus level, which is where, according to Chrysler Canada, the cars are going to transact the most for the V6 set, we've actually got the specific 20-inch wheels on it that definitely give it, well, much more stance to it. But the other one we're also going to be talking about today is the vehicle with the V6. And get this, you can now get the Super Track Pack with the 3.6-liter Pentastar. Well, let's fire up the V6 and give you the story on that. And push the push button engine start. Very nice. Popsy the hood. And give it a few revs. Okay. Doesn't sound like a minivan. Okay, let's pop the hood ski here. See what we got. Okay, I'd like this to look a little bit more performance-y. Kind of looks a little bit minivan right now, but underneath this rather unassuming engine cover for the 3.6-liter Pentastar, what you have is 305 horsepower and 268 foot-pounds of torque. Now, those are pretty good sounding numbers, but the question I have is, what have they done with the transmissions? I didn't like the old setup with a 5-speed automatic. Well, good news there, because what they've done is they put in the Torque Flight 8. Now, that 8-speed automatic is not only going to be on the V6 engines, you can spec that out on every single Challenger all the way up to the supercharged Hellcat. Now, it should be noted that the transmission that we're talking about for the V6s is different than the V8 ones. The V8 Torque Flight 8s are going to be a high-performance version, so don't mix those up in the parts bins. Now, what I like about the V6 setup is that accessibility, serviceability, I mean, a 60-degree engine, I mean, it's not like it's going to be really taking up a lot of the engine bay. The thing is, every single time I see dual exhaust pipes coming out of a car like this, I think to myself, yeah, those pipes are probably starting somewhere south of the catalytic converter. There's a typical Y-pipe setup up front. It's not really dual exhaust. And then I looked underneath this thing, because what you actually get here is true dual exhaust from the headers back. It's beautiful to look at, especially on a brand new clean car like this. But I wasn't expecting that for a V6 because normally that's going to be the engine combination that people aren't really that concerned about when it comes to performance. Now, the other thing too is that with the 305 horsepower, 268 foot-pounds of torque, this particular vehicle does not have a beefed up axle. This is the stock axle car, and I have to tell you already from driving it, I didn't expect it to have that tip in off the line. I mean, you just put your foot down a little bit, all of a sudden this thing feels much more like a V8. And you have to remember that back in the day when it came to these types of cars, everybody certainly lusted after the performance one, but you know, when it came to the second car for the family, a lot of these old school things had 318s in them. I think I might have even seen a slant 6 at one time. It might have been a Barracuda. But not everyone's looking for that much performance in this car. What they're looking for is the stylings of the SXT Plus when it comes to the exterior visual. And I have to tell you, for a V6 car, this thing looks pretty darn tough. Now, I wanted to start with this car because, of course, we have a very clean profile here. We don't have the stripes. We don't have the hood business. I mean, you can go absolutely crazy when it comes to what you want to have here for a visual on a Dodge Challenger. But what I noticed here that was different over the previous model is that down low, and actually it falls all the way to the back here, like so, is that you've actually got this black trim piece, and there's something about adding that well, makes the car look less fat, I guess, if that's the best way to put it, because we're really not dealing with anything here regarding a very big sheet metal change at all. I mean, other than the elements that I've already showed you about on the hood, you're dealing with the same shell. But it's important to note that even just those little things are the cues that the exterior designers are going to be looking for to try to change the look of the vehicle. And I think so far it's definitely working. And as mentioned, combine it with the right set of wheels, and there's quite a few wheel combinations to choose from here. You're going to get something that's not only going to look like it grew there, but also very signature and very much your own personal Challenger. You know, I think a lot of Canadian customers are going to be interested in the all-seeing eye capabilities that can be had with the Dodge Challenger for 2015. Now, we've seen this type of all-seeing eye before on a lot of different Chrysler products. So what you can get here is the safety and technology package for $895. Now, what that gives you is a forward collision warning, the adaptive cruise, there's the smart style of high beams, and there's also rain sensing wipers that occur here too. And I think, you know, considering the type of weather and driving conditions that we deal with, a lot of people should definitely put that on their list. Now, if you take a look at the rear of the Dodge Challenger, you're going to see something that harkens back to 1971, and that is the taillight array that they've done here. So even though it's traditional in the sense of what we saw before with the trunk lid of the Challenger where the splits are and everything, it really has grown up. And now the nice thing about it too, and because I'm the kind of guy that'll help you out with this kind of stuff, when you turn on the brake lights like so, as you can see, they're pretty punchy. But what you also get, as with most Chrysler camp things, is these beautiful surrounds here. So that's definitely going to light up your life, as it will. Great nighttime visual. But the other thing that they've done here too in the 1971 sense is we've gone with this gloss black surround, and with the old school chrome lettering, definitely looks very slick. What's also very slick is take a look at how much of a rear spoiler that we actually get here on the deck lid, which also has the integration of the rear view camera. And having it up a little bit higher definitely helps for the rearward views. But the other thing that also helps for the rearward is the park sense sensors that we have here. So that is something that you'll definitely want to make sure you specify with the car. The other thing I like too for the visuals, the shark fin antenna up top. But you know, the thing is about a Dodge Challenger is that you somehow have to convince if you are in a situation of you have someone else that you need to convince that this is actually going to be a practical car for the family. Maybe not the primary car, but a second car that not only puts a ridiculous grin on your face, but also is practical for everyday use. And well, let me just show you how practical. Now, if you've tried to use the trunk on things like Camaros and Mustangs, you know that you definitely have enough room for your deflated beach ball and maybe your croquet set. But the other thing that you have too, especially with the case of the Camaro, is you really don't have much of a deck lid. It's not what I would call a very large opening. So that's definitely going to make sure that the noses are turned up, if you will, when it comes to family practicality. Well, I have to tell you, when it comes to the Challenger, this is a really big trunk. I also know how big the original trunks were. This trunk is huge compared to the old school Challengers. Now, the thing that's really nice too is it's really exquisitely finished. I mean, all the way around, and even up top here with the deck lid, very nicely done. The other thing too is that, well, some of the best weather sealing I've seen for a long time. But the thing that you need to remember is that you may have to haul some larger items. Well, with the 60/40 split seats, they actually fold down very respectable, and you have a very decent sized pass-through. There's really not a lot in the way that's going to intrude when it comes to the suspension. The other thing too is that you, on this particular SXT Plus, we've got the full Harman Kardon audio system. Now that means that you lose a spare tire and have an inflation kit with this particular car that we're driving here in Oregon. But it's not too often that you see two of a subwoofer style of speaker staring back at you. So if you need to rock it out, you'll definitely want to take a look at that Harman Kardon system. Okay, so this is usually where the we need a second vehicle and pony style of vehicle conversation ends, and that's when you have to put human beings in the back seat. So what I've done here is I'm going to get in. I've set this up. It's going to happen. So now the other thing you'll notice here is that you do have for the seat belts the catches here, and it's very easy to get that in. Trust me, it is. And all you have to do is just slide that in like so. So very easy to access. Now, when you get them out of the way, which is what you're going to want to do for putting peoples back there, like so, you have the release on the back of the seat. So all you have to do is do that. And the beautiful thing is that it does slide forward for human beings to get inside. So let me be the human being for you and move into place. Now, I'm going to do my best to make sure you can still see what's going on back here. Now, hi there. The thing that I do like about it, I'm just going to take off my hat and fix what's left of my hair here, is that the headroom back here is actually quite generous. There's not really anything that's going to get in the way of us 5/8 set. I wouldn't say well, practically a fist you can put between what's left of my hair. Now for getting out, simply push that forward, put your hat back on because it's a little sunny outside. You also do have a center console back here. It flips down, has two of the rubber cincher style of cup holders, and there's also climate controls in the back. Now, I have to tell you, for a four-person touring car, considering how big the trunk is, it's actually going to be something that when you're thinking about this particular segment, if you are looking at Mustang, and if you are looking at Camaro, and you want to actually make it something, well, that could actually be used for someone other than you, this is definitely a space that has been sculpted, has the proper soft touch points throughout. I mean, even in the back seat where we don't expect there to be a lot in regards to soft touch materials, when it comes to the armrests, when it comes to all the soft touch points here, there's actually more than you would expect for sure. There's even practical things like the back of the seats have good size buckets for your stuff. Buckets. They have the pockets in the back behind the seats, and again, it's got very good lumbar support back here. You actually feel as though somebody cares about the people that are going into the back seat. And if you've ever sat in the back seat of anything old school muscle car, you know that that back seat was most likely there for insurance purposes. Okay, let's see just how practical it is up front here for you guys. Okay, so now we're in the passenger seat of the Dodge Challenger, and the one thing I like is that everything's been laid out in such a way that it certainly pays, well, respect to the 1971 stylings, but without going overboard. Now, you do have a locking glove box, definitely appreciated, and it's actually a two-level style of glove box, so you got your War and Peace up here, and then you got your other bits and pieces down below. Flock lined, I mean, that's definitely up level when it comes to class. You do have 12 volt DC off to the side here, and also small mesh pockets to help maintain small things from moving around. But the other thing I noticed here too is that when they went and put this high sill type of console in, it actually gives something that, well, you don't often come across when it comes to vehicles like this, and that's a nice support here for the passenger inboard arm, so definitely appreciate it. Now, this particular SXT Plus does have a manual adjustments here, but these particular seats, again, in respect to the bolstering, and even though these aren't as crazy as the SRT bolsters, there's definitely not your typical 1971 benchy, slidey, aroundy type of situation here. The other thing too that you're going to find as you take a look throughout the rest of the interior is the amount of, well, the cut and sewn factor. You're going to see it on the armrest, you're going to see it on the door panels, and you know, it's just those little extra bits too that are going to, well, help convince the person who may not be convinced that something like this is not only going to be a practical vehicle for everyday use, but it's also going to feel like you're actually in something special. Okay, well, let's hop on inside here and show you just how driver-centric this particular interior is. The one thing I like here, and that's something you're not going to find on the other Pony set, is having proper bottle holders on the sides with these door panels. Now they've really thought about the practicality, and I mean, how many times do you want to be smacking your manual shift into your bottles while you're trying to keep up in traffic? Lots of beautiful stitching on this SXT Plus, because this gives you the up-level interior. And I mean, I remember when just about every single Challenger had pearl white seats in it. So we've got that treatment in here. It's a bit of a retro throwback, but considering they're heated and ventilated on this SXT Plus, I'm totally okay with it. I'll even actually clean them every now and then. They've worked a little bit on the side door demisting, so that's going to be improved for cold weather climate. The steering wheel, it's pretty much what we've seen on a lot of different Dodge products. There's different wheels as you go through the range, especially as you go up in performance. But even with this one here, we still got proper thumb locators, the usual style of Chrysler keys, the switchgear that we see on the steering wheels. This one even has power tilt and telescope. And if you take a look down low, you also have not only a proper dead pedal pad, but you also have a really nicely done kicked up pedals down below. Now, if you remember the old school types of gauges, you had that tick-tock-tack type of look, so we got that retro feel going on here, but a lot of technology in the 7-inch screen that can be reconfigured and take you through a whole bunch of different graphics and visuals. It's very pleasing to the eye, and definitely going to be the type of thing where passengers want to crane over and take a look at what you've got in front of you. Now, this particular one has the 8-inch screen, so this is the 8-inch Uconnect screen, and it's one of the best visuals that you're ever going to come across. Now, it is much more driver-centric here. I would have to say that it's not as Charger as I thought it was going to be. There's definitely a change to the angle here. The Charger, as I remember, seems to be a little bit more tilted towards the driver, but still very easy to understand, very easy to operate. Climate controls, all of that is placed down ahead of the shifter. Now the shifter, this is the E-shift style of shifter, but not that strange little toggle type of system that they used to have on the Chargers. This is a proper shifter. Now, I'm not doing anything mechanical to the transmission right now, but it sure feels like I am. You got the gate down low with this particular setup. The paddles, they're available on other models, but you do have the manual gate here if you actually want to have a little bit more fun with the Torque Flight 8. Things like the visors here, which actually have these sun blockers off to the side. I like that type of stuff. Dual lit vanities. Even overhead, they've actually done something when it comes to courtesy lights that I really appreciate with these beautiful LED overhead glowers. They don't get in the way at all. They don't look as though there's something that came out of a minivan and just had to tack it on to the ceiling. This particular setup with the seats, so what we have here is power lumbar, fore and aft, and then of course the manual recline. But it's surprising how easy it is to get into the back of this particular pony car. I mean, well, it's a kind of a Clydesdale when you think of the size of it when you put it next to things like Mustang as well as Camaro, but at the same time, you're gonna have a heck of a time arguing getting a vehicle like this if you can't get into the back seat. So keep that in mind. I'm here to help. Now, the other thing that you're going to find here is that you do have the sport button. You can put it into sport mode just by hitting a switch. Now, this one has the two mode capabilities here of having the traction nannies on, and then you have a sport mode. But then when you get into high performance ones, you're able to turn off all the nannies and, well, pretty much take it back to 1971. The high sill console, that's something that certainly harkens back to the 1971. The other thing that you need to do is start looking for the Easter eggs. And I did find one, and it's on the inside of the console, so you don't have to look. And certainly in the 100th anniversary for the Dodge brand for 2014, it's nice to also remember who got you there. So way to go, Dodge brothers. You definitely did. You did your company good, you did. Now, V6 cars, kind of have to have them in the portfolio. I mean, let's face it, Mustang and Camaro, they still got 6s. Hey, Mustang's gonna have a 4-banger again soon. The only thing is that when you take a look at the sales numbers in Canada, well, 6-cylinder cars are only making about 20 to 30% of the mix. Gee, I wonder what else people are buying when it comes to Challenger.